I never thought a day like this would happen to me. I woke up that morning feeling normal, coffee in hand, routine in motion, but something in the pit of my stomach whispered that everything was about to shatter. I should have listened. I knew something was wrong the moment I walked into our bedroom. My husband, David, was sitting there, scrolling through his phone with that nervous smirk he always gets when he's hiding something. I'd seen that look before, just never thought it would be directed at me. "Morning," he said, his voice way too casual. I didn't answer. Instead, I watched him, heart hammering, and then I saw it. The message on his phone, just a little preview that popped up. "Can't wait to see you tonight, wink." It wasn't the first time I had suspicions. There were late nights at work that didn't make sense, excuses that didn't add up, the smell of perfume that wasn't mine, but somehow I had convinced myself I was imagining things. Now, seeing it, I couldn't pretend anymore. "Who is she?" I asked, keeping my voice steady even though every part of me wanted to scream. David froze, then laughed nervously. "It's nothing, just a friend from work. Don't be ridiculous." "Don't be ridiculous?" I echoed. "Really? You think I'm stupid enough to believe that after everything?" He stammered, trying to explain, but I didn't want explanations. I wanted truth. The truth hit me harder than I imagined when I finally demanded access to his phone. The messages, the pictures, the plans, they were all there. David had been seeing her for months, right under my nose. I felt like I was dying inside. Every memory we shared, every promise he made, it all felt like a lie. And yet, a small, fiery voice in me whispered, "Don't break. Not yet, not now." Because I wasn't going to let him get away with it. I spent the next week pretending everything was normal. I smiled, I laughed, I acted like I didn't know. Meanwhile, I collected evidence, emails, receipts, secret accounts, everything that proved he had been living a double life. David kept slipping up, a text left open on his laptop, a picture he forgot to delete, a call that I intercepted. Each mistake made my plan easier to execute. I even started documenting his lies, recording conversations, taking screenshots. I became a ghost in my own home, silent and calculating, while he strutted around thinking he was untouchable. The night I decided to confront him, I didn't just want to fight. I wanted to make him feel exactly what I had felt: betrayed, humiliated, powerless. I invited him out for dinner under the guise of celebrating our anniversary. He was smug, oblivious to the storm brewing inside me. As we sat at the table, I pulled out my phone and began playing the messages and photos he thought I'd never see. His face went white. I could almost hear his heart pound, just like mine had a week ago. "You really thought I wouldn't find out?" I whispered. "You really thought I'd sit here and take it?" He begged, he lied, he swore it was over, but it wasn't the apology I wanted. It was justice. The next day, I made my move. I didn't just want to expose him, I wanted the world to know. I sent copies of the evidence to his family, mine, and even his colleagues at work. I wanted everyone who had ever trusted him to see the man he truly was. By the time David came home that evening, I had cleared out the house, changed the locks, and waited for him with a calm, cold smile. "You think you're going to come in here like nothing happened?" I asked. He didn't answer. He just stood there, speechless, as the reality of what I had done sank in. And that's when I realized this was just the beginning. When David finally understood that I wasn't joking, that I had taken control of everything he thought was untouchable, I expected him to crumble. I expected him to beg, to apologize, to grovel. What I didn't expect was how far he'd sink to save face. The first day after I exposed him, he called me nonstop. Texts, emails, even voicemails. I didn't answer a single one. Each time my phone buzzed, a little thrill ran through me. I had the power now. Every call, every desperate message reminded me that he had underestimated me. Then came the first twist I hadn't anticipated. I'd always trusted my closest friend, Lisa, to have my back. She knew everything about my marriage, or so I thought. But one night, while going through some of the coincidental messages David left open, I found a thread between Lisa and him. Her name, my best friend, laughing emojis, inside jokes, everything. My heart stopped. "You think I don't see this?" I screamed into my empty living room. It wasn't just David who had betrayed me. Lisa had been feeding him information, my moods, my movements, even my suspicions. I felt like the walls had closed in on me. Every hug, every reassuring word she had given me over the past months was a lie. I called her immediately, and she answered cheerfully, pretending nothing was wrong. "Hey, how are you? Haven't seen you today." "You knew, didn't you?" I spat, with my voice trembling with rage. There was silence on the other end, then a stammer. I didn't think you'd find out like this. I wasn't." I hung up. That night, fueled by betrayal and adrenaline, I decided to dig even deeper. I went through old messages, emails, and receipts I had collected from David. I found payments he had made, hotel bookings, even pictures of him and the other woman at places I thought we had gone together. But the most shocking discovery? She wasn't just some random fling. She was someone I knew, a woman from our social circle, someone I had invited into my home, laughed with, trusted. I felt the walls of my world crumble. This wasn't just betrayal. This was war. I confronted David the next day, but this time I didn't just bring evidence. I brought proof that Lisa had been in on it. The shock on his face when I revealed her messages was deliciously ironic. He opened his mouth, but no words came out. He looked like a cornered animal. "You thought I was alone in this?" I asked softly, coldly. "Guess what, David? You weren't. And now everyone will know." For the first time, I saw fear, not just shame, but pure terror. He realized that this wasn't going to be a private fight anymore. I didn't wait long. I sent messages to both their families, to mutual friends, and even posted discreet evidence on a private group that both David and the other woman were part of. Within hours, the whispers started. Within a day, it became the talk of our social circle. The woman tried to call me, threatening, begging, cursing. I ignored her. I watched the chaos unfold from a distance. David's reputation began to crumble, but he didn't learn. He kept trying to charm me back, to apologize, to manipulate me into forgiving him. I wasn't having it. By this time, I was no longer just hurt. I was strategic. I decided to play a psychological game. I sent David and the other woman anonymous gifts, little notes that hinted I knew everything, photos of us together with captions like, "Remember this?" sent to her social media, photos of receipts he had tried to hide sent to his email. Each move made them paranoid. They became sloppy. Every lie, every secret meeting, every whisper of contact, they left breadcrumbs I could follow. And then came the next twist. While digging through his things, I stumbled upon something that changed everything. David had been hiding more than just affairs. He had siphoned money from joint accounts, lied about investments, and even forged documents to make it look like I was financially irresponsible. Everything I had worked for, every penny I had saved was in danger, but now I had proof. I realized this wasn't just about revenge anymore. This was survival, reclaiming what was mine, and exposing a man who had thought he could control everything. Even with all the power I had gained, the emotional weight was immense. I cried at night, sometimes shaking with rage, sometimes with sadness. I questioned myself. Was I becoming the monster he thought I would be? But then I reminded myself he had already destroyed the world I had built in my own home. I was only rebuilding. By the time I discovered the financial betrayal, something inside me had shifted completely. I wasn't just angry anymore. I was relentless. Every move David made, every lie he whispered, every smirk he flashed at me felt like fuel to a fire that could no longer be contained. I realized this wasn't just about exposing him anymore. This was about destroying the empire of deceit he had built around himself, showing everyone who had believed his lies the truth, and reclaiming my life piece by piece. I tracked down the person who had been funneling money to him, someone I never expected, my cousin Mara. Mara had always been close, but apparently family loyalty didn't extend to honesty. She had known about his affairs, knew about his double life, and had been quietly helping him hide money from me. I felt sick. The betrayal cut deeper than anything David had done. It wasn't just my marriage, my trust, my family. Everything was being ripped apart. I confronted Mara at her apartment. She opened the door, smiling warmly, as if nothing had happened. "Hi, I didn't expect to see you," she said, her tone light. I stepped inside without a word, holding out my phone. Screenshots of bank transfers, messages, and meetings glared up at her. You knew about him, every lie, every secret, every cheat, you knew, and you helped him hide it from me, I said, slowly, coldly. She went pale. Aftab, it's not what you think. Not what I think? I repeated, my eyes boring into hers. Guess what, Mara? You weren't, and now everyone will know. From that moment on, I went full force. I compiled every piece of evidence, including financial deceit, affairs, messages, and photos. Then I created a network of exposure. David's colleagues got copies of the evidence. Both families were made aware of every lie. Social media groups where he flaunted himself quietly received hints that he wasn't the man everyone thought he was. Mara received a private warning, letting her know that if she didn't confess, she would be publicly exposed alongside him. The psychological pressure started taking its toll. David's calls became desperate, his texts frantic. He tried to manipulate, charm, and beg, but I remained silent, letting him squirm in fear and uncertainty. Then, as if things weren't already chaotic enough, she didn't know I had everything she had ever sent David saved. I responded with calm precision. Go ahead, I wrote. Everything you've said to him, every plan you made, it's all documented. You won't ruin me, you'll ruin yourself. Her panic was palpable. Within hours, she started pulling away from him, and the cracks in their alliance became visible. I could almost taste the fear dripping off her texts. I decided it was time for the world to see the truth. I didn't just want private revenge, I wanted public reckoning. I sent carefully compiled documents and screenshots to their social circle, social media groups, and even mutual friends who had been suspicious but didn't have proof. The gossip exploded. Text messages flew, group chats lit up, and the whispers became a roar. David was suddenly the man everyone was talking about, the cheating husband, the liar, the manipulator. It was intoxicating. I didn't stop there. I started leaving small reminders, just enough for David to see. A receipt here, a message there, a subtle photograph on his desk. He never knew where it came from, but it kept him on edge. Every time he looked over his shoulder, I smiled. Every time he hesitated before sending a text, I knew he remembered that I had the upper hand. And then came the twist I hadn't anticipated. He tried to fight back legally. He filed for harassment claims, trying to get restraining orders, painting me as the obsessive, unstable wife. I laughed quietly as I responded. Every email, every message, every post I had documented. I had legal proof that he had cheated, deceived, and lied. The court case was not going to be about him getting rid of me. It was about exposing him to the world legally and publicly. By now, David had completely lost his composure. His friends abandoned him, his family doubted him, his colleagues whispered behind his back, and Jessica had disappeared from his life completely. Mara was panicking, realizing the consequences of her complicity, and I was finally at the point where I could decide how this story ended. I called David to meet me one last time, in the living room that he had once walked through smug and confident. Now it was my stage. Do you remember the first message I saw? I asked calmly. Do you remember how that moment changed everything? He stared at me, broken, silent. Well, I said, letting the words sink in, it's time you felt everything I felt, publicly, financially, socially, completely. The final act was swift and brutal. I posted all evidence online in a carefully crafted reveal that left no one questioning the truth. I changed the locks and took back control of all shared accounts, leaving him with nothing. Friends and family who had been blind to the signs finally saw the man he was and turned away. Mara and Jessica had no choice but to face their own social consequences. By the time it was over, David was not just humiliated, he was dismantled. And I stood tall, victorious, but also aware of the toll it had taken on my soul. Revenge had a cost, and I had paid it, but I had survived, and I had reclaimed my life. As I sat alone that night, sipping wine and staring at the quiet house, I realized something. This was the end of him, but not the end of my story. I had been broken, betrayed, and lied to, but I had turned it all into power. And somewhere deep down, I knew this wasn't just revenge, it was liberation. The house was quiet that evening. Too quiet. For the first time in months, I sat alone without a phone buzzing, without whispers of betrayal haunting me. The storm I had unleashed had subsided, but the wreckage remained. I thought back to the day it all began, the day I saw that single message on David's phone. I remembered my disbelief, my heartbreak, my rage, and the fire that had grown inside me. It wasn't just revenge that drove me, it was survival. And now I had survived. The days that followed were surreal. David had disappeared from social circles, his career had taken a hit, and his friends and family had turned away. Mara, my cousin, avoided me like the plague, knowing that her complicity had been exposed. Jessica, the other woman, quietly vanished from our community, her attempts to humiliate me rendered useless by my careful documentation. Even so, the emotional toll was immense. I would catch myself staring at the ceiling at night, wondering if I had gone too far. But then I reminded myself, none of this would have been necessary if he had been honest, faithful, or decent. In the midst of chaos, I discovered the people who truly mattered, those who had supported me quietly, listened to me vent, and stood by me when everyone else turned their backs. Their support reminded me that betrayal doesn't define you, it's your response that shapes who you are. I called these friends over one evening, pouring out my heart and laughing through tears. For the first time in months, I felt safe, I felt seen. Revenge had been sweet, intoxicating even. But it had also been exhausting. I realized something important. My victory wasn't in making David squirm or in exposing Mara and Jessica. It was in reclaiming my life, my dignity, and my peace of mind. I walked through the house, now empty of the man who had once made it feel like a prison. I touched the walls, the furniture, the memories, and instead of sadness, I felt cower. I had taken control. I had rewritten the narrative. With David gone, I started rebuilding my life. I focused on work, my passions, and myself. I traveled to places I had dreamed of visiting but had never dared while being tied down. I reconnected with old friends and even made new ones, people who valued honesty, loyalty, and kindness. Most importantly, I learned to trust myself again. Not blindly, not naively, but with confidence that I could navigate life, protect myself, and stand tall, no matter what betrayal might come my way. Just when I thought the storm had passed, there was one final twist. David, desperate and broken, attempted to contact me one last time. Not with threats, not with apologies, but with a confession. He admitted that he had not just cheated, but that he had tried to manipulate multiple aspects of my life, friends, finances, even work opportunities, to control me completely. I smiled as I read his message. "You think this will break me?" he wrote. I typed a single response. "You already did your best to break me. I survived, and now you're nothing." I hit send, and I finally felt free. As I shared this story with my closest friends, and now with you, I realized the real lesson. Betrayal doesn't have to destroy you. It can ignite a fire inside, one that fuels growth, empowerment, and liberation. Yes, I took revenge, and yes, it was satisfying. But more importantly, I reclaimed my life. I learned who my real friends were, who I could trust, and how strong I truly am. And somewhere, deep inside, I knew this was just the beginning of my new life, a life where I am free, fearless, and unbreakable.